Welcome everyone to the Grant Thornton National Webinar on Protecting Your Shred Claim, Compliance Through Automating Time Tracking. Grant Thornton is one of the world's leading organizations of independent assurance, tax, and advisory services. We help dynamic organizations unlock their potential for growth by providing meaningful, actionable advice through a broad range of services. Over 31,000 Grant Thornton people across 100 countries are focused on making a difference to clients, colleagues, and the communities in which we live and work. One of the ways we do that is to provide insights into our clients' most pressing issues. So before we get started, we are going to take care of some basic housekeeping items. Just a note that you will be on mute during the presentation, and question and answer will take place at the end of the webinar. You can submit your questions at any time through the Q&A text box located on the right-hand side of your screen. I am Martha Owner. I lead the GT Central Canada Shred practice and work with clients across all industries to file substantiated shred and digital media tax credit claims. Our national tax incentives practice consists of 60 people, including our member firm RCGT, with specialists across engineering and science disciplines, accounting, and tax advisory. I will be joined on the webinar today by Mike Barnes and Scott Bales, both directors at the leading cloud computing software firm Replicon. Replicon is a leader in cloud-based timesheet software, and being originally a Canadian startup firm, they have a unique perspective of also having been directly involved with shred claims in the past. Today's webinar will cover a number of topics, all aimed at helping our clients meet CRA's ever-increasing demands for compliance in the SHRED program. We will discuss CRA's policy review project and the development of their 5-question approach. We will also identify what documentation can be used to support a SHRED claim during a CRA review. Replicon will demonstrate their time tracking solution and how it can apply to both startups and established businesses to effectively manage SHRED claim time tracking. The Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program promotes private sector R&D by giving out over $3.5 billion in tax credits to over 21,000 taxpayers every year. The benefits are structured to favor startups and smaller firms such as Canadian-controlled private corporations that conduct R&D in the field of science or technology in Canada. Companies can earn investment tax credits both federally and provincially with enhanced rates given to CCPCs. The effective rate for CCPCs here in Ontario is 41.5% of ITCs earned on qualified expenditures such as salaries and wages of directly engaged employees, contractors, as well as materials and overhead. Most recently, the 2012 budget implemented changes to the SHRED program. The tax credit rate for non-CCPCs has decreased from 20% down to 15%. As well as the proxy overhead has been reduced from 65% down to 55% of directly engaged wages over a 2-year period. You will also note that contract expenditures are now only allowed at 80% of their value, and the program has eliminated capital and lease expenditures entirely. So in order to obtain this lucrative tax credit, the work must satisfy 3 eligibility criteria found in the Income Tax Act. If you can meet those, then you have a claim. The first, and I'd say the most important, is technological uncertainty, which essentially means that you've encountered a scientific problem that cannot be solved using routine engineering or standard practice. You can't look up the answer online or apply the company's knowledge base to overcome the challenge. The second criteria of technical content requires that your team follow a scientific method approach of experimentation to resolve your technological challenge. This work performed must follow a hypothesis, testing, data collection, and analysis approach. The third criteria of technological advancement requires that as a result of the project, you have gained knowledge in your field of science to either resolve your challenge or determine that you cannot meet your objectives. So in this program, failure is in fact an option. So broken down very, very simply, you have a problem, you do some work, and you learn something. And it's that learning that CRA is promoting within Canada by giving out that tax credit. We can also claim for additional activities listed below that would support the SHRED project. So what has changed, and why are we seeing such an increase in the documentation requirements at CRA? Well, these 3 criteria have been in place for decades as part of the Income Tax Act, but in 2010, CRA began the policy review project to clarify and consolidate the literally dozens of information circulars, interpretation bulletins, and industry sector guides that were specific to the SHRED program and really attempted to explain these 3 criteria. After about 2 years, on December 19, 2012, CRA published these new policies for the SHRED program and identified a new approach to identifying SHRED eligibility across all industries. As you read through the bullet points on this slide, you'll notice that CRA has simplified, and I use that term a little bit tongue-in-cheek because we have the former 3 criteria are now 5 questions. So what has changed? So if you look closely, you'll see that questions 1, 3, and 4 are all very, very familiar and highlight technological uncertainty, content, and advancement. But question 2, was there a hypothesis aimed at reducing scientific or technological uncertainty? And questions 5, were detailed records kept, are the new questions. So these 2 questions specifically are explored in detail across the CRA policy documents on the eligibility of work for SHRED and the SHRED salary or wages policy, specifically sections 8.2 and 13.3. In reading these guidance documents, it's interesting to note that the terms documentation and records are mentioned more than 40 times throughout. Our interpretation of this by CRA is clearly that claimants are expected to document all activities showing why each major element of the SHRED project is required and how each activity fits into the project as a whole. It is also expected that the indicators or metrics that will be used to determine if the goals of the work are met will be identified and documented at an early stage of the work. In adopting the scientific method approach, the progression of work is built on analyzing results from step to step. To build on these results of testing in a systematic way requires the organized documentation of the work undertaken during experimentation or analysis. This is really the basis for being able to capture, communicate, and, if necessary, repeat the work leading to the advancement of scientific knowledge or the technological advancement. Not only must we document the activities performed, but also the labor invested. CRA states that the claimant must develop an appropriate allocation method for labor that is in part directly attributable to SHRED and in part attributable to non-SHRED activities. So what they are effectively asking you to do is to track everything now, both SHRED and non-SHRED. So let's take a brief look at some forms of documentation across industries that can work to support a SHRED claim during a CRA technical review. From a manufacturing perspective, we include ISO forms, engineering change notices, scrap records, and pictures as examples. From an information technology perspective, we would look towards architecture designs, diagrams, and source code notes as evidence that SHRED work occurred. All of these forms of documentation are occurring naturally throughout the SHRED process. However, they are lacking one main thing, and that is the real-time allocation of labor hours invested. So as you can see, most industry documentation is not supporting CRA's requirement to keep records of resources allocated to the SHRED project. So that leads us into our poll question. So for those of you involved with SHRED claim preparation, how does your company document activities and time spent on SHRED projects? So I'll ask all of our attendees to select one of the following. We use a detailed time and activity tracking system. B, it's a simple spreadsheet. C, on the back of a napkin. Or D, we don't track at all. We simply estimate it at year end. So I'll just let the responses come in. Okay, so we have a bit of a variance across the different results. So roughly 44% are using a simple spreadsheet, 22% don't do anything at all, and 33% already have a detailed time and activity tracking system in place. So with the range of responses, it's fairly clear that a lot of claimants have a need there for time tracking and can substantiate their claims with CRA by doing so. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike and Scott to walk us through their system as well as their experience in working with SHRED claimants.
Great. Excuse me. Thanks, Martha. I appreciate that. My name is Mike Barnes. I'm the Director of Business Development with Replicon. We also have on the line Scott Bales, who is our Director of Solutions Engineering, and we appreciate your time today. What we wanted to do is just provide a brief overview of Replicon and provide a demonstration of one of our solutions that applies specifically to Shred. We have quite a few of our clients that are leveraging it effectively to manage the Shred documentation process. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Replicon, we are the market leader in cloud-based time tracking. We have a platform that really meets any business time tracking need. Today we're going to be focused on the time cost solution, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But we originated out of Calgary, Canada. We were a startup there about 17 years ago and came to market with the solution that we're going to be showing you today, which is very mature. We are a SaaS provider. We provide all our solutions via the cloud. So currently we have 1.5 million active users on our solution. We have about plus or minus 8,000 clients globally. We're active in about 70 countries. We have offices in Calgary, obviously, as well as Toronto. We have an office in Silicon Valley in the Redwood Shores, California area, as well as Sydney, London, and Bangalore. And we have a very high retention rate, which we think is a strong testament to the value that we're providing to our clients, considering we are a subscription delivery model. So if we're not successful, or if our clients aren't successful, we're not successful as well. Jumping forward, Alex, can we just go ahead one slide? Great. Again, I mentioned we provide a platform to the marketplace that really meets any business time tracking need. Today we're going to be focused on time cost, and that's what Scott's going to be demoing for you in just a moment. But to give you some perspective, we also have a myriad of other solutions. Time cost is designed for essentially managing internal projects. It works very effectively within a shared services model as well. If you want to have visibility into what projects your resources are working on internally, how they're progressing against projects, how you want to manage those resources effectively, capitalize projects, obviously, and document that for tax purposes, like Shred. We have a time and bill solution, which is designed more for external projects. So if you have a project-based business model where you're billing back to clients, it has a lot of the same benefits that the time cost solution does, but it focuses on that, consulting firms, law firms. It could be a software company with a professional services element to their business model, just really effectively managing those resources and having clear visibility into what's going on within your business and executing effectively. There's a web expense solution as well that often dovetails onto the time bill product, where you're billing back both time and expenses to your clients that we have available. We have a time and attendance solution as well that is designed to manage non-salaried workforce. So they can clock in, clock out. You can manage union rules. You can manage time off as well. We have a solution that stands alone as well as complements the time and attendance solution, so you can schedule your time off, have visibility into your calendar, et cetera. And then there's a cloud clock, which is a bit of a divergent approach to the market. It's not a physical clock. We actually just provide a software download to a iPad or an Android tablet, where you can simply download that to those devices and have individuals clock in and clock out effectively. Could we jump ahead, Alex? Great. Okay, so again, time cost is the solution that we're going to be focused on today. It's the most relevant to the Shred process. And again, it's designed for internal project management, in this case, R&D. And Scott Bales will go into some detail on the effectiveness of the solution. But essentially, it allows you to have great visibility into who's working on which project, manage your resources more effectively, see your progress against projects, et cetera, and just, again, have real-time visibility into actually what's going on within your business. Alex, can we jump ahead? Great. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of our existing client base. We do have very large clients like FedEx or Northern Trust, Fujitsu, where we have 14,000 seat implementations, but we also have, I think that our sweet spot's really more around the 100 to 500 employee base. I think that probably makes up about 70% of our install base. And we also have very small organizations that may have just a handful of employees. But the solution is very pliable. It's very customizable as well. And Scott will go into some of those details during the demonstration. But just to give you some perspective of our install base, I think this is a good representation. And Alex, should we jump ahead? Okay, I think this is the last slide for me. So lastly, the solution is very extensible. We do have certified, published integrations so that our clients can extend into other applications. Obviously, there's for tracking time, payroll comes into play, ERP, billing, et cetera. But this is just a representation of our existing published integrations. And can we jump ahead, Alex? Great. Okay, so I'll hand it over to Scott Bales at this point, and we'll walk you through a demonstration of the Replicon time cost solution. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I've shared my screen, so I want to confirm that everybody's seen that. Mike, are you seeing it?
Yes, Scott, I'm seeing it.
Excellent. Thank you. So as Mike mentioned, we are going to take a tour, a walkthrough, if you will, of our time cost solution. Obviously, SRED is close to Replicon's heart because as a software development company, we come across a lot of those scientific, technical hurdles that don't have solutions. And of course, we have a development organization where the majority of our costs for SRED are labor costs. So it's important for us to make sure we're tracking those accurately, and that's the solution that we've exposed to our customers over the years as well. What I've done is I've logged into that solution. I've logged in administratively so that I can show you a lot of different aspects, but something to remember is users will only see what pertains to them. So what I'm looking at is a timesheet. Obviously, a big part of SRED claims is labor, and this timesheet is going to help capture that labor information. You need to justify the costs that you incur through tracking of hours and documentation of those hours to specific SRED eligible projects. From a Replicon perspective, we are providing a great user experience. I would put our timesheet up against any other timesheet electronic on the market for ease of use, efficiency. One of the hardest things you're going to get developers to do after getting them to estimate time to develop something is getting them to track what they're doing. It's just not in their nature, and as a result, we need to make sure that that user experience is as clean as possible, and what you're looking at is a very clean timesheet. I only see what I'm assigned to, so I don't see anything more than that. It's very easy for me to find what it is that I'm working on. Here's a hybrid optical graphical control specific tasks that I'm assigned to. Just by typing in, I can find things that I need to enter time to. And then, of course, there's the capture of time with hours and potentially comments, which are going to be important to support an SRED claim. So you want to encourage comments, and we can actually require those on the timesheet if we need to. Okay. The second aspect that we want to consider with regard to the Replicon solution here is configurability. So the fact that I have an activity drop down with some additional categories that you may want to track that time to, the fact that I'm looking at this as a week instead of a month or instead of a 2-week period, and even this progress bar that we see on the back end of the timesheet, all of those elements are configurable and modifiable by yourselves and your administrators, because we want to make the timesheet as simple as possible for your developers, and we want to make it as quick and easy for them to use as possible with all this extraneous information that just begs complexity and potentially introduces errors into that data collection. Okay. So this is where a great SRED claim starts, is great documentation, and adoption is a big part of this. Getting users to use the system is going to be imperative. So an easy timesheet to use, features like copy from, the ability to bring over a previous timesheet period. A lot of your SRED work may be repetitive. I may be working on the same SRED project over the course of several weeks or several months. Copy from allows them to pre-populate their timesheet with those details and tweak where it needs to be tweaked, which is very fast and efficient. It's faster than any type of timesheet interface you would need to use. Okay. Now, along with adoption, which is getting the user to use the product, the other thing that's imperative is compliance, right? Is getting them to use it on a regular basis and submit it. And compliance is mitigated through email notifications and workflow. So Replicon will remind users, hey, you need to be entering your time either today or this week or this month, depending on how you configure it. It goes directly to those users so that they know, hey, I have to log into my timesheet, I have to do my time. And then at the end of the week, what they can do is they'll be prompted to submit it, okay? Because you want some data integrity here. You want to show the CRA that there is data integrity. It doesn't change over time. So when they submit it, that timesheet is locked. So you can report on it. Those reports aren't going to change historically because somebody went in and accidentally changed something in the past. And that submission is prompted by the system as well. Okay. So from an end user or developer or researcher's perspective, you are going to have an intuitive interface that's easy for them to figure out and use. It doesn't add complexity to their day, and it's efficient, so it's fast. We don't want to take away from the actual research that's taking place here and keep them in a timesheet for 15 or 30 minutes filling it in for the month. Okay. Now, the other side of compliance, it would be nice if a great timesheet interface like ours prompted everybody to use it all the time without any prodding. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And the other side of compliance is monitoring. The team tab up the top is available because I have a team. I have people within the system that are entered and reporting up to me. And the team tab lets me make sure that everybody's doing what I think they're doing. And from the team tab, I can see people that have submitted their timesheets through to me. I can see the total hours in their timesheet. So if there's something weird there, like they may not be using the system properly, I can go in and examine that by clicking on Sally's name and bring up her timesheet for more detail around what she's entering. Okay, she had some vacation and holiday time. That explains her hours. If I have permission, I could always edit this. Or if Sally, for example, has forgot to put time on Tuesday, I could reject this back to her and say, what about Tuesday, Sally? And when I do that, the system continues to take on the legwork. It will email, it'll email Sally directly and let her know, A, that it's been rejected, B, it'll tell her what my comments are. And when she logs into the system next, she'll see this message at the top of her timesheet telling her that it was rejected and she needs to enter some time for Tuesday or justify the status of her timesheet. All of those details, you'll notice down below that we've got approval details. We can see when Sally submitted it. We can see when I rejected it with my comments. We'll be able to see when she resubmits it. And that audit trail is important from a data integrity perspective, being able to show an auditor, hey, this is legitimate. Look at the system we're using. We have full auditability of all the timesheet changes. It is accurate and intact. Okay. Now that's great if you have users that are compliant in the fact that they submit their timesheets to you. We had a developer on staff that I think at one point in time he had about 6 or 7 months of timesheets that he had not submitted, and as a result, he had to go back through all of his notes that he'd been entering over these periods, and it ended up taking a lot of his time away from productive work, just trying to figure out what his timesheet should say when we went to do our claim. So Replicon is going to help us avoid this. It's going to give you this timesheets tab, because even if users haven't submitted their time, you're going to still get visibility into it, because the timesheets tab shows me my team's time even if it's unsubmitted. So I can look at the current period. I can look at all of the timesheets in the current period and understand what their statuses are. I can look at the time data as well, real time. So I can see nobody has actually put in any time for this week, and here we are at the last day. So that's probably suspicious to me. This is normal because I just set this up, but that would raise red flags for me, because they should already have some time in the system if it's being submitted this week, and that can tell me I'll expect to have some conversations with people based on the fact that this data isn't in the system yet, and it's Friday. Okay. Helping make that easy for supervisors is imperative as well, because the same reason we don't want users to spend a lot of time entering the data, we don't want users or supervisors to spend a lot of time managing their employees and ensuring compliance. We want to make that easy for them as well. And we'll be emailing them to say, hey, Scott's overdue, or Paul is overdue, so that they're always in the loop. They don't have to go to the system to see it. It's on the fly. It's presented to them. Okay. Now, the other point I want to make is that between these two screens, between the approval screen and between the timesheet screen, the capture of this data is not tied to the browser. I'm logged into a browser, and our system supports all the standard browsers out there, i.e. Firefox, Safari if you're on Macintosh computers. And browser interface is fine, but all of this that I'm doing, time capture and approvals, is also available from your mobile device, your smartphone. We have an iPhone app and we have an Android app that can both be used to capture time, to approve time, to modify time, submit time. So not being at the computer when your timesheet is due is not an excuse anymore. You can do that on the road. You can do that at your convenience at home. It's really up to you. Okay. Now, obviously, we've talked about the end user experience and the supervisor experience, but that end user experience where I'm entering time towards, for example, a research project really starts here under project management. Okay. Again, I have this because of my permission set. And project management is where you're going to set up and define all your applicable projects within the system. And Replicon has a lot more than you may need from an SRED claim perspective. It has the ability to set up estimates on each of these projects and allow you to see where you're at from an estimates versus actuals perspective. If I drill down into that hybrid optical GUI control project, you can see trending analysis of where we think we're going to be versus where we are with regard to our hours, and that can apply to costs as well. And this is all functionality that you can leverage as a part of the Replicon time cost solution. Okay. Now, one thing I have done within the system when we're setting up for SRED is I've leveraged the SRED field. So you can see on every project within the system, we've got an SRED project field that I can indicate whether it is or not an SRED project, because you may have other projects you would like to track time towards. You're not obligated to only track SRED in Replicon. We can filter out SRED projects so that users don't have to make that decision. They can enter time to what they're working on. You know behind the scenes whether this is SRED or not, and you can flag it accordingly so that when we get to the report I'm going to show you, you're able to quickly see just SRED data versus all of your project data within the system. Okay. Now, this is at the project level, but we can create complex task structures below each and every project, and that includes tasks, subtasks, etc. You can assign those to specific users on the project as needed, and as I mentioned, see actuals versus estimates as well. Now, the Team tab is going to allow you to assign specific users. It's going to allow you to see the usage of hours and cost to this project on a real-time basis. So it gives you that snapshot into where that SRED project is at for a given duration. Now, what you may also want to do is leverage the ability to track programs. Okay. Programs are really just a accumulation of projects, and some people would call those practices. But the Programs tab within Replicon is going to give us access to the ability to create something like a research and development program. Now this program shows us that same trending analysis, but it's showing us this trending analysis based on multiple SRED projects that are entered here behind the scenes. Okay. If you want to understand the resources within your organization that are working on those valid projects, this is also a great view to see that as well. Now, we've effectively defined the project that is SRED eligible. We could also be linking to SharePoint or Google Drive or the Microsoft Cloud solution to store related documents to this project. We've captured the time towards it from a timesheet and approved it to lock it down from an approver's perspective. But now we need to get that data out. It's claim time. We need to have some documentation to support the claim that we're filing, and that can be done under reports. So everything that's in the system is reportable. There's nothing hidden away. And the other thing I tend to mention when I'm talking about reports within the system is the fact that none of our reports are written in stone. So I'm going to see a whole bunch of out-of-the-box reports here in the list. These are all project and timesheet-related reports. But what you also see within the system is the ability to modify each and every report. Nothing is static. So if I click on, for example, the SRED credit report to run, the first thing we'll see is several filters. So if I want to run it for this year versus the first half of the year, I have those predefined date ranges, or I can put in a date range explicitly right at the bottom. If I only want to see a certain program like the SRED program, the Research and Development Program, I can easily choose that as well. And these filters are all defined by yourselves. You choose to hide them if you wanted to. If I wanted to just see SRED projects, that's an easy selection for me here. Okay. Now, if I go ahead and run this report, it's going to very quickly come back with information related to that hybrid optical control. It's going to give me project statuses, managers, etc. And then it's going to give me an hours and cost breakdown per user on this project, again, for the filter of this year. So this gives us a very quick look at what our totals are for the year for this project. Now, if there's something missing here that I'm not seeing in this report, I want to remove some columns. Maybe I don't need to see project status. We can go to the settings button because you can change this report at any time. I want to summarize the hours, so I'm going to say, hey, please sum the hours. I don't need to see the project status, and I would like project manager to come before project and name. I'm going to remove the grouping by project name. Okay. The other thing I'm going to remove is user. So we should see a rolled up total for the project now because we're not looking at the user details. Okay, I've just clicked buttons and remove drop-down lists to see those changes. I didn't have to write any code. So I'm going to rerun this report, and as you can see, I now see a cumulative report row for this project. If I was looking at all projects in the system, I would simply add to my filter to expand this. I go ahead and run this report. I can now see all projects within the system showing their individual managers, the total hours and total costs selected for each one of them throughout the organization. And I could always collapse that if I needed to drill into later. So very robust reporting within the tool. It's going to give you all the data that you need to support your claim. It's going to let you slice and dice it the way you want, and I'll let you get it out of the system via Excel, via PDF, or email. You can print it off, obviously, and share a copy with other people in your organization, or email to have it scheduled at a regular basis to send to them throughout the course of the year to keep finance involved. I know our CFO was always curious about where we were at with regard to our claim, and you can have the system automatically forward any of those costs related to your financial group so that they are they're able to see an up-to-the-date real-time balance throughout the year as opposed to surprises come November, December. Okay. Now, in closing, I do want to talk about really the flexibility of the solution. What we've looked at today is really a small slice of what's possible. The system has the ability to track the time off for these users. It has the ability to track their schedules if they're on different work schedules or they're working 24-hour, a 24-hour shift. We can also normalize costs within the system, bringing everybody down to, for salaried employees, an hourly cost may not be effective, so we may want to normalize their costs within the system. But I want to point out that all of those settings and changes and tweaks that can be made don't require a developer. They don't require customization. It's all something that you can do and leverage within the product, expose it through permissions to users within your organization, and at the end of the day, create an optimal experience for capturing this data for SRED claims and making it as efficient and smooth as possible. Okay, that was it for me.